Hi there. Welcome yet again to another episode of Deez Recovery Journey. In particular, this is episode 8. We have had quite a journey with you guys for those who have been following the episodes, and thank you so much for following the episodes of my recovery journey when it came to alcoholism, something I found myself stuck in for about 10 to 12 years. My name is Daniel Orenge, and I am a recovering alcoholic. Just to remind you yet again, for those who may be catching on to this discussion at this particular point, on what or who an alcoholic is, it's very important that I mention it over and over again. This is very important for the person who is battling the addiction at this particular point, or if you have a family member or a loved one who is battling alcoholism. It's key that you understand who an alcoholic is so you're able to assist from a point of knowledge and not ignorance. So an alcoholic is a person not who is not a person who is fond of taking the bottle, as we may think. An alcoholic is somebody whose genetic buildup easily allows him to fall into an addiction cycle once exposed to alcohol. How? The body has a natural way of releasing dopamine, your happy hormone. But when an alcoholic gets in touch with alcohol, this tampers with how the body would naturally release that dopamine hormone. So the body starts to associate alcohol with what triggers the dopamine hormone. So you'd find this person starting to excessively rely on the usage of alcohol and drinking more than everyone else. And then you would start assuming that this person has an issue with discipline. And no, that's not the case. He's just an alcoholic. So it's good that you understand this so you can be able to assist anybody else you may see out there and not come out a bit judgmental. So moving on, in this episode, I was going to explain to you how I decided to go into rehab or to get help. And from the last episode, I had left off where I had lost my job. I had just been fired. And God works in mysterious ways. Because my boss, as he was letting me go, as we were having that discussion, the thing he said is this: Daniel, as a friend, I will advise that you go and get help. But as a boss, I'm going to have to let you go. But if you go and get help, we may consider taking you back. Now that was very important for me, because as I left the office, I thought about my life and I was like, you know what? I'd rather go and get help and fight this thing and possibly come back and get my job. That was very important, and my boss didn't think I'd take it seriously, as he told me later. But I did. And it's a discussion I sat down and I had with my wife, and I was like, babe, I'm tired. She wanted me to stay around, probably get help in other ways. But it was clear in my mind that it was about that time. Some of my family members, my sister had told me that I should consider rehab. And this is a discussion that I had with my wife. And I said, you know what? Every day I spend an amount of money that could go into the well-being of this household when I'm away. Okay? So I went and I had a meeting with my family members. I had a meeting with my brother and an older cousin of mine, and I told them that I think I'm ready to try out rehab, and any help I could get, especially even financially, because I couldn't afford it alone, would be much appreciated. So my cousin asked me, Daniel, why don't you just stop drinking? And I told him, if I could, I would. And he heard me that day. And in the past, he has taken me to see counselors, and he went and did his own research. And we scheduled for a day when we'd go and look at rehab centers so I could make up my mind. But I also called a few relatives who are in the medical field so I can understand what I am going through, and they made it clear to me that your body has fallen into dependency and rehab would help you get back to normal life. So I feel it's very important before you take anybody for treatment when it comes to alcoholism that you sort of introduce what they sort of have an understanding of what they're going to get. You know, it warms you up to this situation. Though in rehab, I found many cases of people who were brought in without knowing. I don't blame the families for doing that, you know. So anyways, we went and looked around for rehabs, and I went to Asumbi. They have a branch in Karen, and I was able to speak to a counselor of mine there by the name Dedan. Very good guy. I'd refer him to you any day. And he was able to make me understand what I'm going through and make me to understand what the program would entail when I join rehab, because I was like, what happens there? Do people just sit around and just chill? You know? And he was like, no, it's classwork you'll have to go through, you know, so you can understand your addiction. And it's a program called the 12-step program, which you'll have to go through. And then from there, there's counseling for the families as well. And then there's a routine you're meant to try and get into. And then there's planning for when you leave, what next, you know, which is very important. So I also went and saw other rehabs. There was a rehab I went to, and it seemed like a jail. They were saying that when you check in, that you have to strip so they can check for any drugs. I was like, what are those? Zibana. So I finally accepted to go to Asumbi Karen. I spoke to a few of my close friends, and I told them the decision I have made, and they were very happy for me. Of course, some didn't think I was at that point, but you see, nobody is with me when the addiction has hit hard. It's just me and my family who see it. Them, they only see the happy Danny, you know, the talkative Danny, the lively Danny, you know, Danny who loves to party, but they don't see the Danny in HDU, Danny in ICU, Danny who can't go to work, Danny who can't keep a job, you know. They're not there. So it's a decision you have to make. And that's one of the reasons why I'm sharing these videos, is because there's a point in your life, especially for anybody in any addiction, where the choice is really up to you. Because you know what this thing has done to you, you know. And it's for you to give it up, and then God is able to help you. And God works in mysterious ways. So I went into Asumbi on the 11th of January 2021. I'll never forget that day. And I remember my brother hugging me and saying, this is the beginning of many good things. And it truly was. Recovery works, it's possible, and that's how I got into rehab. I thought I was going there for 1 month, but I did 3 months. And in the next video, I will give you an overview of what happens in rehab. Maybe someday I'll do a video there, so you could see it for yourselves. It's not what you think. It's actually an okay place, you know. And I got to sit down with men and share. We got to share stories, and you get to realize you're not alone. So thank you yet again for watching another episode of Deez recovery journey. In the next episode, as mentioned, I will be able to take you a little bit more into what happens in rehab and what is the 12-step program. Besides that, I wish you all